Welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. This is our post-game. Dramatic, big lead building Arkansas Razorbacks. Then they come from behind in the last couple of minutes, but a dramatic 93-92 victory. A lot at stake for Arkansas this weekend, not only on the court and its NCAA tournament hopes, but also with recruiting. So this is about as big a game as you can have in a regular season finale under the first year of John Calipari, the new head Hog. Not new anymore, right? The newness does it still have that new coach smell? I don't know, but I can tell you one thing. His team has finished the right way. As the roster numbers have gone down, Arkansas continues to find ways to be resilient, to find ways to cobble together enough game-critical winning plays, executing at the right time. This is a team that's a bundle of unforced errors and self-inflicted wounds, but at the end of games lately, they're finding ways to overcome that and be the better team. Arkansas's won 4 of its last 5, 8-5 in the SEC since starting 0-5. And let's just get the big news out of the way quickly. Let's do the lead now. Arkansas punched its ticket to the dance. I think Arkansas is a lock at this point. The Razorbacks moved all the way up by virtue of the win today over Mississippi State, Georgia's home win over Vanderbilt. We talked about this yesterday when I did a recruiting and a bubble talk and pregame that Arkansas would move all the way up to the 9 seed. That's the case. So the Razorbacks jump up that high in the pecking order. There is a 4-way tie at 8 and 10 between the Hogs, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. But Arkansas's 3-0 head-to-head against those teams. 2 of those wins at home against Georgia and today Mississippi State. The other one in just the most recent road game, the big win over Vandy to put Arkansas in this position. What does that mean? It means Arkansas will still open the SEC tournament on day 1. You don't get a bye. You're day 1, and you're going to be against the 16 seed locked in South Carolina. By the way, Carolina and Tennessee were tied at halftime 34-all. We know Carolina is playing better basketball right now. The big win over Arkansas, the only time these teams met, and it was Arkansas's only loss in these last 5 games. It was an awful loss. Calipari talked about that again in the postgame. He's not even sure he can bear to watch footage from that game in preparation for what will be the second time that 2 teams meet. In fact, if you remember last year, South Carolina swept Eric Patrick Musman's Razorbacks. Not a good team, not an NCAA tournament team, and South Carolina was. South Carolina was one of 4 teams that finished in second place, tied behind the SEC champ Tennessee, beat Arkansas in the regular season here on this court, and then beat Arkansas in the SEC tournament. So 2-0 last year, and South Carolina has won 3 in a row. We know Arkansas lost by 19, and probably the ugliest game for the Hogs this season. Again, they've gone on the road since then to beat Vanderbilt. They beat Mississippi State. This was a quad 2 win for Arkansas today. So the Razorbacks even their quad 2 record at 3-3. They're perfect in quad 3 and 4, 11-0. That's 4-0 against quad 3 teams, 7-0 against quad 4. The Razorbacks are 5-9. That's respectable when you look at the quad 1 resume. And then if you look at the away from home, 5-8 this year. 4 of those were true road games, 3-6 in the SEC. 4 of your 5 quad 1 wins were away from home. 3 of those 4 were untrue road games. The one that was a neutral site game was against Michigan way back in December. Arkansas came in net today, number 39. Arkansas, I don't know how much bounce they get, beating the 33rd ranked net team on their home court. Maybe not a lot, but that's okay. And this is, again, a Mississippi State team that Arkansas now pulled even within the standings, a team that came in today still ranked 25th. Now the Bulldogs are going to follow the polls after losing at home to Texas in the midweek and then Arkansas today. But on top of punching your ticket, when the game tipped around 11 a.m. early start, it looked like a few minutes before and even after it tipped that there might have been as many as 5,000 empties. I think people continue to file in a little bit. So I'm going to call it Arkansas probably had between 15 and 16,000 fans in here. They also had a couple of 5-stars. We know Nate Ament's here for the weekend, and if you guys have been following my reporting on Twitter and at HogvilleNET, you know that I've already interviewed Nate when he arrived in Fayetteville last night. That's out on my Twitter at ARHoopScoop. It's also been posted in multiple places over at HogvilleNET. But I also got video today of Darius Acuff Jr. in the house. Early pregame, he and Ament were sitting on one of the bench. The visiting bench is where Arkansas, on that end of the court, is where the Razorbacks warm up. And so on that visiting bench pregame, you saw both Ament. I tweeted this video out as well, Ament and Darius Acuff Jr. Darius Acuff Jr., by the way, is 1-0 and helping land prospects when he's here during another five-star prospects visit. That was during the football season. Remember that Tennessee game? Malik Thomas was in for a visit. Acuff had already committed to Arkansas, had already had his visit, and was in town to help seal the deal with Malik Thomas, and that's how that played out. So if you believe in history repeating itself, maybe there's something to it. Acuff being here again and in the house again today with at Bud Walton Arena with Nate Ament. Go check out the interview. Nate Ament is just he's really a solid young man. When you look at relative to his age, I mean, he's the kind of guy you understand why his floor IQ and the way that he plays is so elevated, because he's a pretty level guy as a person, modest kid, but I think he's the most versatile offensive player in a loaded 2025 class. And I'll give you just a little nugget of intel right now. I'm told that this visit is going not just well, but extremely well. I'm told it's exceeding expectations. That's the same reporting I had about Malik Thomas's visit, because it's the same information that got back to me at that same time. So make of that what you will. Some people think Duke's in the lead. Some think it's at Louisville. He told me last night Arkansas is definitely his last visit, because he's got a span of 3 more weeks to go after this visit before he announces a decision during the McDonald's All-American game on April 1st. So there's plenty of time for other program to work their way in. Jay Lucas, who's one of the top recruiters at Duke, is taking the Miami job, like now. And so that might be a program that tries to get in on the Boozer twins, a coach that recruit them, as well as Nate Ament. But Ament's told me last night, again, it's in that video interview that I published after midnight, he's done taking visits. And he talked about, some of the things that he would be looking for on this visit. He told me he had no argument with my assessment that he's the best, most versatile offensive player in the country. And again, what is a loaded class? He's a guy projected. Not only is he third ranked by On3 Sports in the class of 2025, but he's top 4. He's no worse than 4th in the other services. And he's projected to go somewhere in the top 5 in the 2026 NBA draft when that rolls around. He also would be a great complement position-wise. I think he's a 3-4 combo at the college level, a big wing at the pro level, and also in some scenarios can play the small ball 4 at the NBA level as he adds strength and girth to that frame. But man, this guy is just an outstanding basketball player. Again, in the house with Darius Acuff Jr. I tweeted out highlights of them sitting together on the opposing bench pregame when it's warm-up time, sitting down with Ronnie Brewer Jr., one of Arkansas's main recruiting coordinators, who's on this coaching staff. And during one of the timeout breaks, Acuff was actually introduced to the crowd and was at center court, and he led the hog call. You can do that when a recruit's here if they've already signed their national letter of intent with the school that he's visiting, and that's the case with Acuff. So this was a big, big day on many fronts. We talked so much about it in the lead-up yesterday when I did my Friday. I talked Ament, talked recruiting. We went through the bubble stuff. Again, I've said it for a while. Arkansas wins this game, they're a lock. I won't back down from that. Even if you lose to South Carolina in the first round of the SEC tournament, the other bubble teams can't perform well enough to displace Arkansas. The Hogs came into today the same as they were yesterday in ESPN bracketologist Joe Lenardi's last 4 buys, the last team on the last 4 buys. I don't know what other bubble teams are doing exactly right now. We know Georgia's on that same bubble and won again at home. They've got the Bulldogs have a 4 or 5 game winning streak that includes a big win over Florida. That obviously is a high level quad 1 win. So I think Georgia, I already felt like their road win at South Carolina locked them in today. If there were any questions, that's resolved. So Georgia, I don't think is any longer a bubble team. Arkansas technically might still find itself somewhere on those last 4 buys list. I think that's okay. I don't think that matters. In fact, Oklahoma and Texas play tonight. That is, or sometime today, this evening probably, and that's going to be an elimination game. And it's not a play-in game for either one of them, but it's the loser of that game is probably eliminated. You've had Indiana and Ohio State, 2 more bubble teams that are facing off today. And if they've already played, I didn't catch the score, but that might be an elimination game for Indiana. Ohio State is in the last 4 buys group, 1 spot ahead of Arkansas. If Ohio State loses that game on the road, it might knock the Buckeyes down to the last 4 in group, but I don't necessarily think it eliminates them in Lenardi's projections. But Indiana, it might if Indiana loses at home. So other bubble teams are playing each other. This was not a game pitting two bubble teams. It was one bubble team, and that's Arkansas. And the Hogs did what they needed to do, led by as many as 16 points in the second half, and Mississippi State kept chipping away. This was a game where offense, let's go back and think about Arkansas's biggest wins this season. The neutral site, the first big win over Michigan away from home in New York City in the Big Apple, Madison Square Garden. 89-87. He scored 89 points in that game. When you look at the win at Kentucky, 89-79, another 89-point game. When you look at the home win over Missouri, 92-85. You're up into 92. Today, Arkansas scores 93. I don't even know if I mentioned the final score. It was 93-92. But you get to 93 in that game. The Vanderbilt win, Arkansas got to 90. So for a team that came in today, 15th in KenPom in defense, and you think, well, that's the identity of this team. It's a good defensive, a really good defensive team. Top 15 in the country, that's borderline elite. But ranked, they've been oscillating between mid-80s to low 90s, somewhere in there in offensive efficiency. Yet, in the biggest games of the season, that when this team wins these higher level quad 1 games, even today against Mississippi State, which is a high quad 2, Mississippi State came ranked 33rd in net, only 3 slots away from this counting as a quad 1 home win. But in these games where Arkansas has effectively used to punch its ticket, its biggest wins, it's been an offensive juggernaut. I mean, 89. This is a team that had to grind through games. It's a team, regardless of what I mentioned, some of these handful of games or so, is still got that kind of lowly rating according to KenPom when you look at the offensive efficiency. And one of the things we talked about yesterday in the pregame, the part that I did the pregame, I mentioned a couple of things about Mississippi State. I said they remind me a lot of Texas A&M of how much havoc they can create. Even though this is not one of Chris Dan's better defensive teams, they still will force you into turnovers that you probably shouldn't have. And that, coupled with the fact that Arkansas has a propensity to have these unforced turnovers, these self-inflicted wounds, that could be problematic. And really, that's where Mississippi State stayed in this game. And some questionable foul calls in the first half, I thought, that carried Mississippi State. I thought there were 2 or 3 phantom calls there where, and Arkansas fouls not once but twice a 3-point shooter. I'm not sure. I don't know if, I didn't have the benefit of replay sitting up here in the nosebleed in the media area. Maybe they were better calls than they looked like to me, but some of those foul calls. But either way, the turnover game, and I compared Mississippi State to A&M and how they are how they can make you erratic offensively and get some live ball turnovers and get going the other way. If you remember, in that close loss at A&M, Arkansas was -7 in turnovers in that game, 17-10, but they were -15 in the points off turnovers, 22-7. So when you lose by whatever Arkansas lost by in that game, what was it, 6 points, and you were -15 in points off turnovers, that was the whole ball of wax. Arkansas was actually competitive on the offensive glass and limiting A&M, which at the time was the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the country. Well, fast forward to today, and it was more problems with turnovers. This is why I made the comparison. This is one of Arkansas's worst turnover games comparatively. 10-2, so not as many as they had against A&M, and they did better in the second half of limiting that, but 10-2, -8. And then points off turnovers, Arkansas was -15 again. So just like A&M, 19-4. It's why I brought it up. I could see this as being problematic. And so that was an area of concern all game for Arkansas. And it really fed a fast break advantage for the Bulldogs. 18-6 plus 12. We've seen in some of these wins at Vanderbilt, Arkansas dominated the points off turnovers, or especially get out and fast break and points in the paint. Today it was closer points in the paint, but Arkansas finishes +4 there. But it was those turnovers that I thought would be a problem. And I also thought this is a really good offensive rebounding team, and there were, especially in the second half when Arkansas had built a 14, 16-point lead, there were times where Claudell Harris was getting second chance opportunities after an offensive rebound. I think back-to-back possessions, he scored a total of 5 points, a 3, and another mid-range shot after Mississippi State secured an offensive rebound. Nonetheless, when you look at the rebounding overall, Arkansas +12, the problem was on the offensive glass, -1. It was a Mississippi State team that came in averaging 13 offensive rebounds a game. Today, Mississippi State wins that battle 12-11, so Arkansas got its own share of that. And the Hogs actually finished +2 in points, second chance points, 14-12. Now, Arkansas had a 7-3 advantage at halftime on that. So Mississippi State, again, part of the comeback was they were a little better than Arkansas on the offensive glass in the second half. I mentioned Arkansas +4 points in the paint. Bench scoring, this is where Arkansas has also gotten better. We're going to get into the individual performances because I haven't even put a toe in that yet. But as a team, Arkansas 31 points, Mississippi State 31 points. We've seen Arkansas be crushed. Usually many games, even when they were winning, minus 20 in points off the bench. So Arkansas doing better there, and most of that was Jonas Adu and obviously Billy Richmond today together scored all 31 of those points because you only have 7 players, so you got 2 bench players, and that's a lot of points for those guys. Arkansas minus 3 in steals, 5-2. We talked about the turnover numbers. Mississippi State only had 2. Both of them were Arkansas steals. Blocks, Arkansas usually wins that battle. That was the case today, and some of them were big, especially at the end of the game by Billy Richmond. John Calipari talked about that multiple times about his performance and that block at the end. But 7-4 plus 3 there, Hogs almost doubled them up. And Arkansas had a SEC season high in assists, 21-15. You saw a lot of concentration on working the ball inside to Jonas Adu, who played like an all-SEC guy that he was predicted to be coming into the season. It's not his first double-double of the season, but it's his first 20-point double-double this season. And it's the last time he did that in here was for Tennessee last year when the Vols destroyed Arkansas on this court. That was the last time he had a 20-point double-double when you added up the double-figure rebounds. But Jonas Adu today, 21 points, 8 of 11 from the field, only 5 of 10 at the free throw line. But the last one he made was his last free throw attempt. The game was tied at 92 all with 11.3 seconds left. He hit the back end, the second, missed the first, hit the second free throw. Arkansas, Richmond gets a block on Kugel driving to the basket. The carom goes to Mississippi State, another offensive rebound, and it was Melendez who missed a little bank shot. It looked, from our angle, it looked like it might be good, but it just skipped off. I can't wait to watch the replay and get some better angles on it later, but that's the way it looked. Arkansas holds on. Again, this team led by 16 points. I think it was 70-54, and here comes Mississippi State. And you see these stretches of games where Arkansas just has really sloppy play, just unforced turnovers, just lazy passes, and then you're continuing to do weird stuff like foul and bail, kind of bail the opponent out, get them to the free throw line. Statistically, when you look at Arkansas shooting today and you see 93 points, it was another one of those games where Arkansas just was really hot, just like they were against Vanderbilt. 31 of 56, 55.4% for the Hogs. 61.5, they shot over 60%, over 61%, 61.5 in the second half. 9 of 21 from 3 for 42.9%. We know the Hogs can be really streaky. They've gotten better over time, but they still have these games, and they were only 3 of 11 at halftime, but finished 42.9% with 9 makes from distance, and they were 6 of 10 from the 3 line in the second half, 60%. The Hogs finished the game 22 of 27 at the foul line. All 5 of the misses were by Jonas Adu, but he hit the biggest one of the game that won it. 81.5% as a team. When you look at the second half, Arkansas 10 of 14 to the line, 71.4%. But again, Adu was getting to the line a lot, but he was also scoring a lot. I mentioned the 21 points, 8 of 11 from the field, and Arkansas made it a conscious effort of feeding the ball in him. Billy Richmond had a high assist game. DJ Wagner had a high assist game. Nellie Davis also had a high assist game, and they were just, whether it was entry passes or off their drives, just pitching it in to a better shot to a big man, and most of that was Jonas Adu. That's what you saw the Hog guards doing today. And even though they took 21 threes, that seems like a lot, they did make 9, but I thought they had a concerted effort to get the ball inside. Look, Mississippi State, Arkansas was only up 45-44 at halftime. That's a 1-point advantage. And yet the Bulldogs had only shot like 36% in the first half. It's because they were getting turnovers and extra possessions, getting more shots on goal, and limiting Arkansas's opportunities. That's why you don't want the unforced turnovers and the self-inflicted wounds. And again, when you're giving teams 3 free throws, again, I'll question some of the whistles tonight, but at the end of the day, Arkansas had another game where they fouled not only once a 3-point shooter, but multiple times. But at the end of the game, Mississippi State 32 of 73. They took 17 more shots than Arkansas. Again, the turnover difference, and then they even +1 on offensive glass. 32 of 73, 43.8%. 12 of 32 from 3, 37.5%. That's really good. And they caught fire late, and it was how they overcame that 16-point deficit. In part was by knocking down threes. 16 of 21 to end the game from the free throw line. That's 76.2%. This team shot 13 of 14 of the first half at the free throw line. That was over nearly 93%. On the season, this was a team that came in shooting 69.9%. So they were way out of their league and at a high volume of free throw takes in that first half. Second half, and this is part of how Arkansas wins this game, only 3 of 7 at the foul line in the second half, 42.9%. So it brought the number down, 16 of 21 overall, 76.2%. So this is how, Arkansas is just finding ways. 4 out of their last 5 games, and that's without a Duthero. By the way, I was told, I didn't see him initially. I was told he was in the house today. I think it's the first time, if that's true, that he's been present for a game, I think, since he got hurt and didn't finish out the Missouri game. I believe that's accurate. I'm still under the impression he will not be back. So we'll see what happens. I've had conflicting, source information on that, but I still believe he's probably done. The same I feel about Boogie Flan. I don't think we'll see him again. And now, again, Arkansas is down to 7. This is not optimal. Arkansas will get beat in the first round. Well, who knows? This is a team that's playing its best basketball, if you want to call it that. Aside from that horrible loss at South Carolina. So, yeah, that's possible. Calipari said in the postgame, he goes, we're good enough to beat anybody, and we're also the kind of team that could be beat by anybody. So, he talked about guys just filling in and stepping up. We went through Jonas Adu and what he did today, the 21 points and how he got them, but 10 big rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks in 32 minutes. So it wasn't just the 20-10 double-double that he hadn't had in this building since he was at Tennessee, but look, 4 assists and 3 blocks, that's a big deal. Trevor Brazile, foul trouble set most of the first half with 2 fouls, ends up with a huge second half. He has it now back-to-back double-doubles. He had the monster 16-14 game at Vanderbilt. Tonight, 11 points, 11 rebounds, all of those rebounds on the defensive glass. And if you looked at least half or more of those because of the way Mississippi State attacks an offensive glass, he had to come from weird angles on really big hustle effort plays. These weren't just, well, I'm here and I can jump higher. He was coming out of his area to get rebounds. It's something we just have not seen. And I'm going to tell you, the way Brazil's played the last 2 games, it reminds me of Maui Brazile before the knee injury when he helped Arkansas out there go 2-1 and win that third-place game. It was a loaded field. They beat San Diego State when he had 20 points, 9 rebounds, hitting threes, a couple of blocks in that big win over a team that eventually went to the national championship game. It was a ranked team at the time in November in Maui, but this is the best I've seen Brazile probably in back-to-back games, in games where the stakes are really high and the opponents are quality. They're good opponents. They're NCAA tournament opponents, and he's putting up double-doubles, and it's not just the numbers. Again, it's what your eyes are showing you. Look how he's attacking the ball. He's the kind of guy that if the ball's in his area, he might ball watch anyway. He's been that for so long. Or he'll get, but he's getting out of his area. I just haven't seen this from him in so long consistently. And you love it. This is when you need it now more than ever. But Brazile, 11 points, 4 of 7 from the 3. Back-to-back games now where Brazile has hit 3 3-pointers in a game. The 11 rebounds led Arkansas. He did have a couple of turnovers at 23 minutes. Nelly Davis, I put a stat tweet out a few days ago on several of these guys. But Nelly Davis is averaging 14.5 points per game ever since Boogie Flan went away after Arkansas started 0-5 and didn't return. And today he was a little better than the average, 15 points, 4 of 10 from the field, but 3 of 5 from 3, so he was efficient. He had a couple of threes early. At 4-4, he made all 4 of his free throws, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 0 turnovers, and 34 minutes of box score plus 4. So, another solid performance from Nelly Davis. And the 2 steals belong to him. Arkansas forced 2 turnovers. They were both steals. They both belong to him. DJ Wagner had a season-high 24 points. And look, here's a guy that's continuing to struggle taking care of the basketball. But he continues, even though that's part of Arkansas's problem in some of these close games, he continues to make huge plays, especially offensively. He's been so big. I ran through all the Arkansas's quad 1 results, the teams they beat. One I left out was the road win at Texas, 78-70, where they didn't score 89 or 90 or 92 or 93 points. But he has continued to have big scoring productions in second halves. And I had a tweet about that this week. In Arkansas's 4 biggest wins, the quad one wins, he had these monster second halves. Well, today he did it in both halves. Season high 24 points. He had 10 at halftime. Adu led the Hogs in the first 20 minutes with 11, but 10 in the first half, 14 in the second half. And he continued. I mean, today he was on a tear. 7 of 9 overall shooting, 3 of 4 from 3, and the dude knocked down all 7 of his free throws. He's got better at the line, and today he was clutch there. But he hit that big step back 3 when the game was tied up under a minute that put Arkansas ahead by 3. 92 to 89. Then Hubbard, we know he's been a Razorback killer, didn't shoot well today, finished with 17 points, Josh Hubbard, the little guard, but he knocks down a 3 to tie it back up, and now you're playing the clock game with about 33 seconds to go. Mississippi State coming out of the timeout decides to press. Arkansas beats the press. Brazil's got a run at a layup. He missed the layup, but there was a Jonas Adu to get his 10th rebound. And it was an interesting scenario because you shot the ball before the clock got under 20 seconds. There was about a 3.5 second difference between game clock and shot clock to start that possession. But on an offensive rebound, if you miss a shot, it only resets to 20 seconds. So even though you had more than 20 seconds on your shot clock when you took the missed layup, now you reset. So there's more, your shot clock will end even sooner with more game clock left. It's an odd scenario, but that's the way it played out. Nonetheless, Arkansas gets Adu to the free throw line. He makes 1 of 2. Again, he made the second one that put Arkansas up 93-92. But going back to DJ, it was a big step back 3. He hit 14 points second half, 10 first half, 24 points. The last time he scored 24 points in this building was not during the regular season. It was when Arkansas beat then number 1 Kansas in the exhibition game. That was the last time he cracked 20 here. So he got 24 tonight. He had 24 in that exhibition game. So you bookend an exhibition game, your first exhibition game, to the regular season finale with 24 points. This one counts, and man, were they big. And he also ended up, DJ did, with 5 assists. So he was, he had 1 more than Nelly Davis. 2 rebounds. He did have the 4 turnovers. He was a box plus 4 in 38 minutes. Let's move down the list because Billy Richmond had a big block at the end, but he had his first double-figure scoring game in SEC play. He's been a guy that will give you 8, 9. We know he's not a big production guy in terms of scoring coming off the bench. It's the energy, hustle plays, and some of the things that he does that helps Arkansas at both ends. But 10 big points, 3 of 6 from the field, made all 4 of his free throws. He's a good free throw shooter. 6 assists to lead the team. 2 rebounds, 2 blocks. He did have 3 turnovers. We know he'll have trouble with turnovers as well. 28 minutes. So a big game for Billy Richmond. Not the best night for Carter Knox and Big Z. They did score 6 points each. They combined for 7 rebounds. Z did have 2 of Arkansas' 7 blocks. We know he's the team leader in blocks, one of the best in the SEC. Carter had a couple of turnovers tonight, not his best game. But again, you're 7 deep, and it's not like Carter Knox and Big Z didn't do things in this game to help Arkansas get to where it did, because you win by only a point. All that production mattered. So even if it wasn't their best games, this is a group that plays well together. And let's not forget, they played well together when Adu Thero went out several games ago. It's not like they're better by subtraction. And even though Arkansas started 0-5 with Boogie Flan, I still think that's not about anything Flan was doing wrong. And this guy was on an all-SEC pace, not just all SEC, not just all freshman team, but all league kind of pace, despite the record at that point. But I'm not going to sit here and argue the point that Arkansas would had done exactly as well as they have now had other guys not been forced by default to step up because guys were out. So it's just a weird dynamic. But the other thing is John Calipari has done an outstanding job with this team. I had some criticisms when Arkansas, and I still do at times, but overall I think he's done an outstanding job because you see individual improvement and you see it translating to wins. So you can't ask for more than that. Individual improvement, and it's translating to wins. So if you were just seeing guys get better individually, but you still can't find a way to win, that's also on your coaching staff, maybe more so than anything. But it's the opposite right now. And again, Arkansas is on a bit of a roll. This team, again, it's odd. It's fit, today, defense, especially in the second half, I thought the first half Arkansas was pretty good defensively. Second half, not so much. The teams just were going back and forth, and there weren't a whole lot of stops. And when Arkansas would have a good defensive possession, they'd give up an offensive rebound. You know the drill. It's a broken record at this point. The self-inflicted wounds. If I had a nickel for every time I use that phrase this year, I'd have a lot of nickels. I'd have enough to fill up a jar maybe. But that's part of the identity of this team. I always say it. Arkansas is playing to opponents. They can't sometimes get out of their own way. And we saw that in the stretch. Some of those late turnovers were just unforced. Again, this team's going to jump passing lanes. They're long. They're athletic. They play a certain way where they're daring you to make a lazy pass. It's not that they're just great at, gobbling up a good pass. A team like Arkansas, it's just a tough matchup. That's why, again, I talked about it pregame yesterday. This is something to pay attention to in this game, and it nearly cost Arkansas, but it's all positive right now. Again, Arkansas will probably get a little bump maybe in net. I don't think that matters. I don't think it matters right now. I think this team's locked into the NCAA tournament. This team's going to dance. Now it's really a matter of seeding. What can you do in the SEC tournament? South Carolina's not a great matchup for Arkansas. It's a noon tip. Today was an 11 a.m. tip, and Arkansas answered the bell today. That other South Carolina game, I think it was an early tip, wasn't it? On the road, and Arkansas looked like they were sleepwalking in that place. It was just awful. Calipari even overshot the drama of it all in the postgame today. He goes, what was it, 40-point deficit? I don't know if it got to 40. I know it was 35 at one point, close enough to round it up, I guess. But either way, it was a debacle, and that's the team Arkansas is going to get in the first round of the SEC tournament. The good news here is you were a whisker away from maybe being on the bad part of the bubble, lose this game, and then if you lost to South Carolina, that might be just enough to keep you out. Win this game, I think Arkansas is locked. I do. I think I don't know what Lenardi or some of the other ones are saying now as the day progresses. These talking heads will pop in at halftime or commercial breaks, and they'll give their 2 cents on where it's at. But I see no way that Arkansas doesn't make this now. And I think they'll still be a bubble team going into the SEC tournament in terms of, do they move up 1 or 2 spots, maybe on the last 4 buys, but they'll still be out of a play-in projected going in. And so even if they lose to South Carolina in the first round, I think at worst they'll drop. At worst, they would drop into the last 4 in and have a play-in game. So that is something to think about, especially if that does happen. You're already short on numbers, and then you'd have 3 games in 1 week. You kind of have that as the conference setup is, because you have a Saturday game, then a midweek game, then another Saturday game. So you basically play 3 games every 8 days. But in the NCAA tournament, it'd be even fewer days in between. So if you played on a Tuesday in a playing game, even if you got a Friday, Sunday, you're still playing. You're not playing it in 8 days. You're playing it in 6 days, or 6 days. So you don't have as much time to deal with it, and you're down to 7 guys. So you really you don't want to say, okay, we probably punched our ticket now. We're a lock. Let's rest up and whatever happens. I think you got to approach it like we need to keep winning. We need to improve our stock with this NCAA tournament situation. And of course, the other teams, a lot of these other teams are playing for the same stuff. South Carolina has not been as good away from home as they have been at home. Even though the record doesn't look like they're good, they're a tough team to beat on their home court. Not as good away from home. And this will be a neutral site. I don't think it's a great matchup for Arkansas, but maybe Arkansas has a point to prove and wants to even the score against that team in the first round. And again, I'm still fascinated looking at around college basketball and some of these other bubble teams. Arkansas is in a little better shape than most of the ones that came in today. Kind of in a closer. I think Arkansas is in better shape aside from Georgia. And again, I need to see other results. But I'll say one more time, I think Arkansas is a lock for this. What a big day to have Nate Amen in here. Remember, beating number 4 Tennessee with Malik Thomas and Darius Safecup Jr. in Reynolds Razorback Stadium. Had more drama, I guess, because it was a 4th-ranked team, and it's, but those are basketball guys. Nate Amen's a basketball guy, and this is a great college game. It was a great atmosphere in here. No, it wasn't completely packed out. There was a big chunk of empties up here on the second level near, a little adjacent on the same end, but adjacent to the media area here. Well, there wasn't many fans up there, but most of it was filled up enough. Somebody may be mentally unstable. I don't know what. I think. Do we have more arguments and pushing and shoving in the comments today? We had the other, getting more and more of that where everybody's sparring off and not holding back punches in there. That's all right. That's what fans do. But this is a great day if you're an Arkansas Razorback fan, because I think Nate Ament, you've given him a really good impression. Darius Haycuff's going, okay, I've been to 2 of these now, and this is what Arkansas does. It's W's. Football, now basketball. And this was a ranked team, technically, 25th. So there's a lot of symmetry if you want to look at it that way. It's a Kentucky fan. Okay. I'm not great with the comments anyway. I just kind of lean in and squint because I don't have my glasses on. And it's, there's nothing fancy about the production I put on here. It's just me yapping about what I see because I'm a basketball freak. I love it. And I appreciate everyone that tunes in and joins me for this. But it's a joyous occasion. Again, I think Arkansas is in really good shape with Nate Ament. I've heard that the visit is going even better than exceeding expectations. Almost the same exact storyline, again, more symmetry as Malik Thomas when Acuff was here to help recruit him. We'll see where it goes. I'm not going to predict that Arkansas ends up with Nate Ament. This could very well, like I've said so many times, and coming from source information, could be highest bidder situation. And Arkansas can be the highest bidder, or they can choose not to be. But I think Calipari's track record as a coach and getting players to the next level and what the max contracts and the success they have at the next level, it's unprecedented compared to any other coach in a good way. And then you've got goodies to sell. I mean, Nate Ament gets to Northwest Arkansas. He's who knows what his impressions are on every little thing. I know his itinerary. I know some of the stuff he's doing. Some of that I reported on in the recruiting article I did yesterday and published on HogvilleNET, as well as Pig Trail Nation on KNWA's website, talking about some of the things he'd be doing while he was here. Then I've added the links to the video interview I did last night, which I thought he did an outstanding job in that brief interview. There's more to the story of what was going on right after our interview concluded. I'm just going to throw this in here because I think it's a little humorous. I could have sworn there was a Kentucky implant in the lobby where we were at, because as soon as it was over and he started to walk away, this guy kind of started heckling and go, who's the next player that Calipari's going to ruin? And so we ended up having this long conversation. He ended up admitting he's a Kentucky fan. He was here for some conference, called himself Duke, of all things. Has the name of a different blue blood and a blue blood rival of Kentucky, whatever. But he had some strong opinions, as most Kentucky fans do. That's a basketball school. SEC has traditionally been a football conference. Arkansas, and he agreed, this is the funny thing. He said, Arkansas is not a football state. It's a basketball and a baseball state, but not a football state. I mean, exactly. I said, I preach this all the time. And, of course, I love football as well, but I do think that's true. And either way, but this guy, I spent about an hour talking to him about what he thought. I wanted to hear his reasoning about why a lot of the Kentucky fans felt the way they did about Calipari before he left. But even he had to acknowledge there's a level of fear from Big Blue Nation about success he might have here, and that could spill into some jealousy. Well, Arkansas's finished the season the right way. They won in Rupp. That was Arkansas's biggest win of the season. It still is to date. And so there's a lot of positives here, and I do think Calipari still looks to me like a guy that's not jaded by some of the downs this season. When Arkansas's lost games, when they went 0-5, he was still referring to his team at times as, I have a good team. There's a bunch of great guys. I've got a lot to work with here, and I'm enjoying coaching this team. Well, if you keep losing, that at some point it's no longer true. But instead, the things he has talked about, the things he has said, shows me that this is not a coach that's washed up. It's a coach that has a finger on the pulse of his team, and he was a guy that's with his coaching staff and with the players, despite attrition, despite all the things we said would be a problem for this team and might be something they couldn't overcome, they've actually overcome it. So don't tell me this guy didn't have any more bullets left in his gun. And don't tell me he didn't have a quick draw, to get it out of the holster. You're not going to convince me of that. So again, this Kentucky fan sitting 10 feet away from where I interviewed Nate Ament had a lot to say, and I came back with some stuff. It was a good conversation. That's the one thing about Kentucky fans. Whatever you think about them, they're diehard basketball, most of them, and they can talk college basketball. So that was kind of interesting. All right, spent too much time talking about it. I just thought it was kind of weird and wacky. Man, you guys are still going at it. 93-92, the Arkansas Razorbacks take care of the business. I've already got a game story out. You know, I do that immediately when it ends. I'm lightning fast with that. I've got some details in there and stuff that's helpful. When I'm done here, we wrap this up. I'm gonna embed this YouTube Live. I'll add quotes from the post-game press conference and some more stats and some other game details because some play-by-play that's going to be necessary to explain what happened. So I've got some more work to do. Instead of shooting back down the hill right away to get back to Little Rock, I'm going to be back at the 6A boys tournament. I just wanted to bring that up because last night I covered Springdale's win. They're hosting the event. Springdale, I think, is the best team in 6A. They'll play Jonesboro tonight, which is, West Swift, and that program's always good. Now playing the last several years in 6A and already has a 6A title since joining that really brutal 6A Central Conference. But Isaiah Seeley, future Hog. So I've seen two of the three future Hogs in the last 24 hours because I covered Seeley last night. 24 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and a couple of steals in Springdale's double digit. I think they won by 16 or 17, 64-47, 17-point win over Little Rock Central in the quarterfinals to move to tonight's semis. I'll be back in there. But I interviewed Isaiah. He talked about, wanting to finally get over the top and win a title. He's been to a title game in 6A a couple of years ago, didn't win it. This is going to be a great opportunity now with 2 more wins needed. We talked about that. We talked about he's keeping his eye on the surging Razorbacks, and he's proud of that. But he also mentioned that he knew that Nate Ament was coming into town, and he was hoping that this would be a good weekend and that Arkansas would take care of business while they were here. So that's another interview on video that I videoed and tweeted. Have it on video and tweeted out, and also posted it to HogvilleNET. And you can go check that out on my X or Twitter, whatever you would like to call it. I still screw up and call it Twitter. By the way, the Kentucky fan guy named Duke says he thinks Louisville's going to get Nate Ament. He doesn't think Kentucky's really in it. And I we'll see. It could be Louisville. It's either Louisville or Duke have been the main talking points to where we are now. So let's see what this does and how that impacts it and how it changes it. And I've said it a million times, Calipari does not bring in players that he doesn't feel like he can get. He hasn't gotten all of them, but he gets most of them. And he brought the hammer in today, and Darius Acup Jr. is 1-0 in these kind of scenarios where he's one of the recruiters. I just loved it. I thought it was really great that he was here. What have we left out? We went through all the Arkansas stats. Mississippi State ended up with 6 players in double figures. Hubbard 17, 18. So Harris, Claudel Harris, he's a dangerous guy, man. He can knock down threes. They do a really good job of changing direction and then ball faking, getting you off your feet. That's another area where Arkansas still struggles, leaving their feet. They're so athletic and they're such a good shot blocking team that they'll leave. You can get the Hogs to leave feet and put them in peril. And that's how you get and ones. And we saw some of that today. Matthews did a good job with some of that. So did Murphy. Kugel, the Florida transfer, ended up with 12 points. But they had, again, six guys in double figures. Melendez with 10. Missed that last shot that would have given him 12 in the win. So he didn't get to 12. He stayed at 10, and they lose. Arkansas had the big 10-0 run to start the second half, by the way. It was a 1-point advantage at halftime. Arkansas immediately jumps out to a double-digit advantage, and they just kind of built on it a little bit, up to 16 points. And Mississippi State would have a big play to get it to 13 or 12, and eventually Arkansas started having, again, the unforced issues, self-inflicted wounds, and Mississippi State got it down to 7. And then from there, the Bulldogs went on a run and actually took a 1-point lead. Later, they led by 2. And it was kind of back and forth, but Arkansas always had an answer. And it never got to be that I can recall, it never got to be a 2-possession deficit for Arkansas down the stretch. It was always a point or 2 points. And Arkansas would find a way to make up for that. So that's again, how you win games like this. The last time Arkansas played here after back-to-back, after splitting those road games against Carolina and Vandy, Arkansas had a 14-point second-half lead against Texas and let that slip away by some of the same kind of things we've been talking about. What happens and plagues this team. That game went to overtime, and Arkansas found a way. Fell behind by 3 points in overtime twice. And then Big Z had enough of that and started, I think he had a run of 6 straight points. Arkansas regained the lead at one point and just held on to it and built on it from there. So Last two games in here have been really, really tight for the Razorbacks. Even the Missouri game, when you lost Duke Thero, you won it by 7, but you had an 11-point lead when he went out with 6 minutes left, and Mizzou got it down to a 2-possession deficit a couple of times there down the stretch. So, again, this Arkansas team, you can't count on a blowout win. We've seen a couple of, 3 double-digit margin wins in SEC play. I wouldn't call any of them blowouts. By 12 over LSU here in an ugly game, a grind game. They beat Texas. They beat Kentucky by 10 on the road, Texas by 8, so not even double digits. And then they had that 13-point win over Vanderbilt. So it's not an Arkansas team that blows out quality. And Arkansas's been blown out, but only 3 times. Only twice in the 0-5 start, and then again at South Carolina. So I don't think the South Carolina game defines anything. I think Calipari was right to burn that tape and move on, because Arkansas's won the other 4 games around it against better teams. I mean, Arkansas's picked up a quad 1 win at home over Missouri, a quad win on the road against Vandy, and 2 quad 2 wins, Texas here and now today Mississippi State. So 2 quad 1s, 2 quad 2s, and a quad 2 loss at South Carolina. As bad as that record is, that was still only a quad 2 loss. So Arkansas's really bolstered the resume in this last handful of games, now down to a 7-man rotation. 93-92, I'm going to sign off now and get to it. We've talked a little recruiting. I've explained kind of in general the bubble situation. I think even if Arkansas's technically still on, I think they've now locked themselves into the NCAA tournament. I believe that. I mean, it would require a first-round loss by the Hogs to South Carolina and every bubble team around it going on a serious run. And there's just not going to be enough of that. A handful of those teams of, you've got anywhere from 8 to 12 serious contenders on the bubble. At least a handful of those teams are going to falter and do worse than Arkansas has, and a couple of them, might be okay. Might win one or lose one here. It's not going to be enough to overcome Arkansas. I don't see a path where this isn't a lock now. So we did talk that today. I'm glad we talked the recruiting stuff. I love doing. Again, go check out my content on NCAAT. We've got a lot of stuff out there over at HogvilleNET and on my Twitter feed at ARHoopscoop. If we need to break in with anything, if we get an AMET commit out of the blue, which he's going to wait till April 1st, he told me that, but we'll see. But any updates that I feel important enough to come on here, whether it's recruiting or something to do with this team, if there's something developing with the availability of guys like Adu Thero and Boogie Flan, which I don't think it's going to change, but you never know. But until then, the next time we'll probably be on is to do a preview of the SEC tournament and maybe update some of the other stuff. And then Wednesday, so that could happen Wednesday, or I might do it Tuesday since there's such an early tip Wednesday. But we'll definitely have a post game on Wednesday. Arkansas, South Carolina in that first round. It's an early game, first round of the SEC tournament. But until next time, until I see you again, thanks for being here. Take care, and look forward to seeing you the next time.